I mean, it's what is happening here is just standard statecraft, right, and diplomacy. We all know that the president of the United States, the current president, is not a man that is conventional in the way he approaches things, the way he engages internationally, and the way he engages bilaterally. So what Kellogg is doing is carrying out the very nuanced, assignment of statecraft and foreign relations as well as diplomacy. So the president may have his position, which is clear, but of course the machinery, when it's now state to state at the highest level, you have to have this level of wording, because again, it is one thing for the president to have his style. It is another thing for the United States government, when the bureaucracy of foreign policy and international relations is set to work. You expect this kind of narrative. So I'm not surprised at all.
And what might the upcoming U.S.-Russia discussions about a possible meeting between Trump and Putin mean for future diplomatic relations?
Well, I mean, look, I was just saying this today to a couple of people, and I said, look, Russia exists in the world, and that is the truth. The United States will not only relate and engage with countries that, whether they share the same principle about the world order or how humans should live or how the world should be run or how societies must be designed. What that means is there is definitely going to be common ground. If the goal is to end the war in Ukraine, the impact of that conversation, which has not happened, when you look at the relationship between Russia and the past U.S. Administration under Joe Biden, it was fraught with a lot of suspicion and competition and a lot of, back and forth. It was hot. But what this administration is doing is to say, look, if we run on a campaign to end the war, we're going to start doing certain things that we believe can end the war. There will be compromises that will be made. Some may not be favorable to Ukraine, looking at the posture of the current president. And also, some will not be favorable to Russia because, he may be asking for more than, Ukraine is willing to offer or that the United States president is willing to accept. So let's see what happens with the talks, even as they come out and as we move from just, meetings to concrete plans and concrete statements that will come out from these talks. And I think that's what the impact on the implication of those talks will be on future diplomatic relations between U.S., Russia, and Ukraine.
And in light of the United States' stance against designating Russia as the aggressor, what consequences would this have for global backing for Ukraine?
Well, so another thing we must state here is that Europe is firmly backing Ukraine now, looking at the U.S. posture. And of course, Europe and the U.S., the North Atlantic Treaty, NATO, haven't served as the backbone for Europe's security for a long time. And with the current posture of the current administration and trying to reduce the deficit and calling on European partners to spend at least 2% of GDP on defense spending, what that means is Europe is saying, we've got to change strategy. We've got to increase our firm commitment to not just Ukraine security by ensuring that if the U.S. pulls out, we pull in and, support Ukraine to make sure that Vladimir Putin does not win this war and does not take other countries or invade other countries. Because again, this is interesting. What is happening now has happened before. This is history repeating itself. And that is one thing you learn, if you're in the national security space, if you're doing defense, intelligence, and if you're a statesman, you understand that humans at every, epoch just repeats almost the same thing. So, but I can tell you this, Europe is now re-strategizing and saying, we would increase our commitment to Ukraine. And if you hear the word from Scholz, the German chancellor, you hear the word from Sturmer, the UK prime minister, and all the members of NATO in Europe are saying, look, We don't trust what Donald Trump is doing. Designating Ukraine as the aggressor is the wrong thing to do. Now, we have to, if you look at the emergency meeting that Macron called in France in the wake of J.D. Vance's speech and U.S. meeting with Russia and Saudi Arabia without Europe's being, at the table. So all of this is informing the idea that the defense posture, the defense idea, the national security strategy for Europe would have to change. It means they would do more for Ukraine moving forward, looking at where this current administration is. But again, I think this administration is doing all of this in my analysis to get Europe to do more, because I strongly believe that the U.S. will not abandon Ukraine no matter what the president says. That's my analysis right now.
Well, very interesting analysis, because it begs to ask the question of how are Ukraine's military plans and the larger geopolitical landscape going to be impacted by the continuous Russian strikes and even civilian deaths?
I mean, it's tough, and I think if you hear the president of the United States, he says it every time. We need to keep the death toll down. I mean, on both sides, it's been catastrophic. Russia has lost over 500,000 troops, Ukraine over 600,000 troops, and now based upon your report and what we've been reading in the news, fresh attacks. And now, Ukraine now has weapons that can strike into, Russian territory. That wasn't the case before. So if this escalates and we don't get to a ceasefire and a peace agreement, we're just going to continue to see more young people dying and losing their lives, either on the Russian side and on the Ukrainian side. It's so bad that even Russia had to go get fighters from North Korea. That's just to tell you how debilitating the war has been. From intelligence that we have, the Russian military is heavily decapitated. They are not capable of training soldiers to go to the war, to the battlefront quickly as they want. Ukraine is also, conscripting more younger people into the military and sending them to the front itself. Now, that has impact on not just today, but the future of both countries. And it's, again, I think with a lot of negotiations and security guarantees that cannot be broken, that is what would end this war. Security guarantees, NATO is not going to go, maybe eastward again. But of course, again, it begs the question. Ukraine is an independent country. They make their decision. They can say, but again, of course, you then go back to 2004 with Gorbachev and all the conversation about NATO and how it is a defensive alliance and not supposed to go, eastward. All of this can be put on the table and say, okay, you know what? Are we going to have Ukraine in NATO? Is Ukraine going to be able to go into the EU? Because I know that Putin is now saying Ukraine can join the EU, but I know the one he wouldn't want to see is have Ukraine be a member of NATO, because that means right at his backyard, NATO's ballistic missiles and nuclear, capabilities just be put right at Russian state borders, and that is what he does not want to see.
It's been an interesting 1 month when you look at the ascension of the king. Donald Trump, president of after his swearing in, and now looking at how this has panned out with the Russia-Ukraine war. Let me finish there. I mean, because we're out of time. God bless. I must say thank you, because we're pretty much out of time. But thank you so much, Godbless Otubure. He is the U.S. National Security, Defense, Intelligence, and Statecraft Emerging Expert, IWP DC. God bless once again. Many thanks.